the Trump trial. So my favorite thing about this Trump trial, I'm into this Trump trial. I think the other Trump trials, we would just comment on, we'd explain it, so we're all up on it, and we just kind of move on because whatever. This Trump trial, I'm jumping in like the OJ trial. I think it's awesome. Starting with the fact that the judge donated money to Joe Biden's campaign and then donated money to a group called Stop Republicans.
Yeah.
What do we? That's perfect. How did the person making the simulation put that Easter egg in there for us to find? And no one seems
It's kind of a dare. It's kind of a dare. Things have gotten so absurd. The case against Trump in this one in particular is so absurd. The fact that they're going to keep him captive essentially in New York for weeks is absurd. How do you find impartial jury? You can't, obviously, you can't find an impartial jury. They still need to find 11. I mean, even that process, it's going to drag on for so long. It's clearly election manipulation because he's not going to be able to campaign the way he needs to. He's going to be trapped to a certain degree. He can't miss any. They're just sitting there just waiting for him to nod off for 4 seconds so they can make a lead headline. But it's so obnoxious. And then Trump was accused of intimidating a juror because he muttered something. I mean, just so ridiculous. One juror got dismissed because he was raging about Trump and literally writing "lock up Trump" on Facebook. I mean, you can't. And still got far enough along to where they weren't dismissed until today or yesterday. Yeah. Anyone who doesn't find this to be completely embarrassing for the country is not paying attention. But I have no idea how it's going to turn out. I really don't. I know it's not good for Trump. I mean, you can just look at the polls. The polls are tightening. If you look at some of the betting markets, Mike, we were talking 6 weeks ago. Trump was at the highest polling we've seen from Republican candidate in decades. And now he and Biden are neck and neck. The prediction markets have Biden ahead. This is going exactly how the Democrats wanted it to go so far. So, it's going to be it's going to be a content bonanza. But I'm not confident this is going to go. I hope it backfires, but I don't know for sure yet.
Oh, interesting. We've because I think every trial so far has helped Trump. Starting, of course, with busting down the doors of Mar-a-Lago. That sailed up, cinched up his nomination. I stopped paying attention to the polls when Trump was ahead because I was just happy with that and was done with it. So I haven't noticed that they're tightening.
Yeah,
and what's going on?
Yeah,
there?
well, it's hard to know exactly why. I don't think there's a lot you could point to specifically. Inflation is actually coming back. So it's the Biden's not doing anything well. The Middle East is in terrible shape. Biden is very struggling to keep the center, which is generally pro-Israel, and the hard left, which is generally pro-Hamas. I don't know how he's going to be able to do that. He's not going to be able to do that. He's alienating a lot of people with his Middle East policy, and yet somehow the polls are getting tighter. Now, if you ask Boyle would say, don't worry about it. But I think that we need to say that we need to treat ourselves like we're running behind. And we, at the moment, have been acting a little cocky on the right that Trump is so far ahead. And you've always have to consider that if Trump gets convicted, that's a big news cycle. The more we talk about this, the less we talk about the open border, the less we talk about fentanyl, the less we talk about China, the less we talk about crime in the inner cities, all that stuff, the less we talk about the Bidenflation. All of it is running out clock. And there is a level of exhaustion that could set in, having the public forcing us to go through Trump on trial for 19 different things.
The Democrats seem right now to me awfully quiet. I don't know what's going on over there, but they seem like they're kind of waiting. They're buying time. What's the? Do you see that?
That works with my point. That works with my point. They want to be quiet. They think Republicans are such jokers in the House. They think that Trump is toxic to a lot of Americans, and they feel like that is their objective, is to try to be on people's radar as little as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing it. I haven't seen Biden do anything.
Yeah, that's his plan. That's what he's going to run from the basement again. He's not going to debate.
Again.
He's going to try to run from the and this is figuratively speaking, but figuratively speaking, he once again wants to run from the basement. That's what he wants to do. Because the more we're talking about Joe Biden, the worse Joe Biden does. And he's seen all the data, and he's practical and pragmatic in this way. He's not he's become less of a showboat and more pragmatic as he's gotten older. And he thinks the key to winning is to talk about Donald Trump and to stay out of the spotlight. He knows that. He wants this. He wants to stay in power. He's got plans. And it is... be aware that this is what's going on. If you go to any major front page this morning, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about Donald Trump and his Hush Money trial. And there's 5 more or 6 more trials after this one.
So should we not talk about the Hush Money?
No, I mean, that's the whole trap. That's what they got us, is that we have to. It's the biggest thing going. We want to see Trump win. We've got to we've got to stand by the guy who's getting politically persecuted, unlike anyone we've ever seen in the history of the country, perhaps. We've got to see this thing through at this point. But it's at the expense of talking about horrible things that... How many people know, Mike, that inflation spiked last month? Like, does anyone know that? No one knows that. I mean, we know intuitively it's not going great, but does anyone know that the data is going in the wrong direction? Very few people. It feels like I was listening to Jay Powell talk yesterday at the chairman of the Fed. Even he was acting like, yeah, we haven't made a lot of progress. Progress? We're going in the wrong direction. Numbers are going up, dude. See, where you been? It's this guy who's literally in charge of this thing. Yeah, we haven't made progress. No, look at the charts. Look at the data. It's going upward. It is, but what are we going to talk about today? We'll talk about Mike Johnson. We'll talk about Donald Trump. Maybe we'll talk a little Israel. Maybe we'll talk a little Ukraine. We will certainly not be talking about anything Joe Biden's got going. That's for sure.
We got to make more of an effort then to make sure we focus on that. We have to be. If no one else is, then we have to be focused on that.
Yeah, we do. But also, we're going to talk about Trump. I mean, we're going to talk about spending. We're going to talk about the border. But we got to talk about Trump too. Because we got to. He is being sacrificed in a way. They're trying to put him up as a sacrificial lamb, basically, to send a signal to all right center Americans that you do not get the level of power and influence that Trump has, or we will destroy you. We will destroy your family. We will harass you until your dying days.
I thought of the other day, this all ties in, because we got to talk to people, right? We got to talk to people, and we got to convince people to vote accordingly. There was the Berkeley Law School student who went to the dean's house. They were having a gathering, and she went to the gathering. She brought her own microphone and amp, which you do too. You just carry it around. You never know.
Just in case. Hey man, I'm a talker.
So she starts going to this whole thing about Palestine, and the dean says, get out. And then the dean's wife grabs the microphone and she does the whole, oh, you touched my hijab. You touched the hijab of a woman during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Oh, you'll be hearing from CARE. She does this whole thing. How do you deal with people like that? How do you deal with people like that? And because that's one type of person and a good percentage of people. But I'm also then more concerned about how you talk to your regular person down the street. What is your advice? Your neighbor, your coworker, friend, family, etc. What's your advice for talking to people in these next?
I was driving around yesterday, going to one of many doctor visits for my many children, and which keeps me in the car and keeps me thinking about stuff, Mike. And I had a very similar thought: because I was listening to a podcast on something that's completely apolitical, and as is so often the case. The host, who's not there's nothing, he should not be talking about politics at all, slipped into how horrible Trump is, as people are known to do. And I was just thinking about what would I do if I ran into this individual? Would I try to convince him, because seeing how far gone he is? And my thought really is only for entertainment value, because if someone's that far out there, then all you can really do is only convince them if other people are watching. Only make it because you're not going to get through to a lady with this level of politics sensitivity. But however, in the age where everyone is constantly doing performance art, if there are cameras rolling, there are other people around, you can try to poke holes in your argument. Try to expose who these people are. I always love when I'm talking to people individually who I might differ with politically, just to ask them questions to get them to defend their positions, because they can't answer basic questions about their positions. They don't know any Republicans. They don't know any conservatives. They're not even aware of what our arguments are. So asking them to react to the things that are important to us is always very effective. You're not going to convince them, though, but you might convince other people in proximity who are apolitical or are more open-minded. So I think it's always a good exercise to talk to people with whom you differ, if it is in a somewhat public forum. But if you're having a one-on-one conversation on, around the mood bounce at a child's birthday party over the weekend, there's no one else in earshot, and you get the impression that the person considers themselves a far-left person or a committed, someone who's going to be raise the hierarchy at UC Berkeley in the faculty, you're not going to get through to that person. It's not going to happen. So it's up to you what you want to do with your time at that point.